Bridges, Aldcombe, Haywards Heath, Wibblesfield, Burgess Hill, Essex, Preston Park, and Brighton.
Pop-up research station.
Hello, Alpha.
How
Can
are
you
you today?
Pretty good. Just I had to go to the doctor this morning about 8.
Let me turn the recording back on so that we can
I just
start
did.
Okay, great. So so I can set this up for sharing. So Bill, you can start off with a little bit about the commissioner and the work that she's doing. And this is what I'm going to share right now.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah. Alexa,
Okay,
off.
There we are. I guess I can see
Yeah.
beginnings. Yeah, we meeting on Friday with the director of the Forest Preserve. His name is Carl Pearson. And so we took a walk, as from the entry throughout the space. And then we discovered areas that were very unique that would have the possibility of including sculpture. And so as we walked, we went to it was a flooding area that happened seasonally in this particular space. And so it had some really colorful maple surround.
Right now I'm showing the slide of the entry where they created that sitting area. Do you see it? 'Cause you're on your phone, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So then now I'm gonna go ahead on and this is we're only starting right here because this is the entryway that they want to do a focal point on, where the neighborhood is, where the township is, where the police department is, the services, the library. So this right here is what I'm showing first as a gathering space, one of their outdoor classroom spaces, that they want to create these kinds of seating areas for outdoor workshops or classrooms. So that's what, and taking found objects that have been over in the public works area, like these boulders. There's a lot of stuff they've scavenged and, put together, for this area. So that's why I'm showing this first slide. So anyway, here we go, Bill.
Okay. So as we walked from the entry point, we discovered various spaces that included a variety of trees that were designated for that area. And so I think the closest next destination, as I said earlier, was more like it seems to flood periodically each year. And so that we were thinking, well, okay, would it be nice if we had a sculpture of 3 herons, designated in that space that would bring about a site-specific relationship to the preserve. And so I think, did we pass it?
We haven't got there yet. You're in head of the walk. We haven't got there yet. But this talk a little bit about Carl Person is with Open Land, and he's
yeah.
these poles here that you'll see in the ground out there. Did you remember the conversation about those poles?
Yeah, the poles were in memory of residents or even community activists that wanted to have a memorial site. And so what was used was like there was a metal placement which had the name of the person who passed away, and then it described it was near a tree. Each had a unique tree, and so they gave the name of the tree and also the Latin name, which was placed on this plaque attached to the metal framework. And so we're taking a look at that, looking at the options that was available. Also, there, I guess could have been 100 years ago, I'm thinking, or there were sort of like sewage systems where they had water. What do you call those hydrants that were
Yeah,
placed throughout
fire
the?
hydrants.
Yeah, because the plan was to create a village or a community, so they were not able to get that far. So uh, they had placed these hydrants throughout the space of open land, and so they were used as designation markers, and they were painted various colors. So that was interesting to see as we,
Yeah, she
you know,
called these like their first like pop projects, like pop-up projects. And these are defunct, they're not usable. But there are a lot of them there and they're, painted bright, vibrant colors. And the ones that are functional, they have a flag on them so that the fire department knows that the hydrant is functional. I thought it was a creative way to do that. And then these boulders are there to cover drains, like the sewer drains and the drainage area that Bill's talking about. So that's what the creative use of these boulders are, so that folks don't get down into the drain system or pop those lids and, different things
you
happening.
would like to
And
have that energy.
and this is in that whole area that he was talking about. That's a flood
We
basin.
had to pull back from what they do.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Bill.
And this was I guess the flood area. And then you could see a beautiful maple tree accenting the space. I think there were like two or three.
Yeah. What did he say about in this flood basin, the idea of having the drainage or a place where they have dug down into that area so that the water is like a reserve?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I didn't catch much of the discussion with that, but I just, yeah, it was just idea. I don't know if it drained naturally or there was an outlet for flooding within this space, so I'm not quite sure.
Okay. So that was the only reason we're bringing that up, and they pointed that out, was because that whole area is not an area that possibility for sculpture. And that's where you were talking about the herrings in metal that could be there as a, because they're metal, they're not the wood or rot. There's other things that we were talking about as we were walking through that.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
And that's
And here's that canal. That's not isn't it a ditch, a canal that is coming through there?
yeah, it was like they call it a creek. And
Okay. What's the difference between a creek and a canal?
I think a canal would be larger. A creek I think it would be smaller as far as capacity to flow throughout a certain area. And so also when we're moving toward the front of the preserved area, this is, yeah, and you can see visually, you can see the creek flowing through this. Seems like, I don't know, it was an overpass, but it
What was that overpass to that main highway that
yeah,
goes through
and that main
Hazel
highway,
Crest?
yeah, Kedzie, which is and so we're moving toward the front of the space.
There's like she was talking about, there's a huge turtle that lives here, like she said it was 6 foot and he says it was maybe a foot, so they were going back and forth with the size of the turtle that lives here. So there's other animals and then they also have a lot of wildlife that lives, families of wildlife that live out there. We only walked 23 acres of the property when there was 50 more acres.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's like maybe 63 total.
73
Oh,
total.
73, okay.
Yeah, so anyway, we were talking about these markers for when we decide to start installing public, the sculptures, they're gonna have to have the utilities district and folks come out to do the surveys, but a lot of the surveys are already done up in front, according to Carl, so they'll know areas that could be like, they get ready to dig, for the base for sculptures, so they'll be the ones, and the commissioner will be the ones that do all the licensing and permits to get things done there. But right now, I was just looking and making a note of where these spaces are, because Carl was picking up the flags.
Yeah, as we move through
Mhm.
space. And so it seems like it's very linear in style where the creek passes through the space. And let's see, is this this is the flagpole, which has there's signage, which is on, as the cars drive through Kedzie. It also, good designation for seeing the space.
And this sign just went up this year, actually a couple of months ago. This sign just went up. The pole was donated by, like, what is it, ComEd or People's Gas,
Yeah,
by way of, they just left it there. And then Carl had it installed, because they had been asking for like the flagpole for a while. And then so now they have it, and they have this look in the front finish. But Carl was kind of against us talking about this being a focal point or the entry point, because it faces the highway and neighbor and housing, and not, the first sculpture should go on the other side where I first started the slides, because that's more community than this off the road here.
yeah. I thought he mentioned it's still under development, the front area. So
Mhm.
this the community may be coming in to do some work, additional work, uh, in the front space.
Mhm.
But it's really nice. I even like like it's almost, there's railroad ties that are almost plastic in nature that creates a flower bed.
Right here.
Yeah, it was very nice.
It's poured concrete, because I was asking them about that, and the other railroad ties rotted and all that, which most people do have problems with it rotting. But this is the one that it was fabricated already as a mold, and then they poured concrete to simulate the railroad ties.
Yeah,
Mhm. And something else we need to look up and kind of get some facts behind. This is where they got their funding for. Initially, they had asked the Hazel Crest Commission um, to fund this project, and they didn't have it in the city budget, but they got a grant, so they're able to continue the work. Okay, this is, we're going toward the area that you were talking about, is a flood basin, because they want a rain garden in the area. So we're walking toward that area.
okay.
And here's another opportunity for kind of like public art. And they have seating areas along the way. Folks drive down this way to affordable community of um, apartments and condos down there, you know. And while I was talking with Marilyn, she was saying that, they're really trying to galvanize community to use the park more. Most recently, they cut down those native plants, because it was like they complained about that high grass and how unsafe it was. to kind of walk around out there. So a lot of this open space is a recent improvement with Carl cutting down a lot of that high grass. But this road right here, again, is the road to the apartments where the commissioner felt like a lot of the community is disengaged with participating and coming to events they host because they are renters. And I don't know, a lot of renters are invested in community, but a lot of the renters versus homeowners. Homeowners, are you invested in coming to program, in a natural park, or are the renters really taking advantage of being surrounded by a preserve? And when you were talking earlier, Bill, the development stopped like in the 90s. This is just a tree that's kind of rotting and they need to come cut it down. Poison ivy, is out there. So I did take a picture of that, storm damage.
What I thought was interesting, Carl explained that residents were not allowed to, take a fire pit within the space and for a barbecue outing or things like that. So there are limitations in terms of recreational, being part of a recreational space.
Really, it's not a field house, it's a walk when you go out there. And the classes that they were talking about would be like the classrooms that, teach about native habitats and other programming that Marilyn was talking about. Now here's that other fire hydrant, and this is how they identify it as being active. And what Carl was saying and Marilyn was saying that all this area was because the developers lost money on it. They donated this land to the Hazel Crest. So basically it was gifted to them. And then there was another match that happened. So it's not tied up in a land trust that really belongs to the city of Hazel Crest.
Yeah, yes, I agree.
He took us back into this coved area, I think he saw it as a possibility, but this has all just been like cut down. And what is it about these, what are these fruit seeds?
Yeah, it's well, it looked almost like some kind of baseball in size, but they were green colored, and I think I don't know the name of the tree that it's a part of, but that was interesting to see them falling or placed, falling onto the ground.
And this is that area it's interesting where the apartments and stuff, or when you come down that road, there's a whole community developed apartments where this whole reserve is surrounding them. And this is that basin you were talking about where she would like to see, she meaning Maryland, would like to see a rain garden out here.
Yeah, and then there are quite a few walnut trees that are surrounding that area as well.
They have walnut trees. They also have persimmon trees. There are peach trees out there, and usually that's for the natural habitat. The birds and other, animals that eat squirrels. Raccoon that eat off of it out there, because they said usually the humans that visited that they don't really pick the fruit and stuff like out there. But this is another angle of the rain garden she was looking at. They had actually cut all of that grass down, laid that tarp down to discourage the weeds to grow back, and then they've grown back through that grass that they laid out there.
Wow.
So that's another, like, toward the end of the sculpture project that, or an area that we have to look at and how to develop a sculpture area in here.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
This area is closer to the homes too. Yeah, so that's where I got, but I want to go back, I'm gonna stop share for a second, because I want to go back to some of the videos that I took of Carl when he was talking, and I didn't want to just flip through the slideshows.
Sure.
So I thought he had some interesting, conversation when he was talking to us about, the preserve area. Here's one. Okay, just a moment. You could keep talking, Bill, while I come back to this.
Yeah, my thoughts are, as far as establishing a entry point site for sculpture, and that would be very good, because I think it would be a great intro into the space, having something created for that area. Yeah. So
And then, but what didn't Carl, was he really adamant about not wanting, I don't know, to copy, what was he saying, what other folks are doing? And we kept giving him other examples. And for somebody, he has a vision of what he sees different about this project than some of the other.
Yeah, because I also asked him about plant and tree identification, but he said there was no funding available for that.
Liberal,
Here he goes. Here's this. What he's talking.
not estimator,
Can't help
the
you.
guy that values property.
Assessor.
Yeah,
something like that.
okay, yeah. Okay. And valued it at twice what the owners thought it was worth. The village got a grant from IDNR for half the cost. And then the developer donated the other half.
Okay.
So he got what he thought it was worth, is in my estimation. This happened before my time, but I'm just surmising what happened. And so the village obtained the property at zero cost. And, they were supposed to develop it, well, we'll wait till next year, we'll wait till next year, kind of thing. And 93, Debbie Jones asked me to come help for a couple of hours, and it's gone from, from there.
Now you mentioned Debbie a lot.
Yeah, it could have been louder, but again, I was
With
just.
open lands, though, right?
What?
Are you open?
This is not.
Open lands, right?
Well, we won't watch that one because my camera's all over the map.
We could build an outdoor stadium here, but we couldn't build a dome stadium here.
Okay, I got you. Now here.
All right, so that's our site visit. That's our site visit. Hi, Dora. Thanks for joining us. We're talking about the Hazel Crest open lands in the village of Hazel Crest project that we are doing some fact finding on. And William Hill of William Hill Gallery has been invited to by Marilyn Allen, which is the Open Land Commissioner, to come and explore in the possibility of, or visioning the possibility of having sculptures installed out there on their forest preserve. So that's what today's intro is about and what we're discussing. All right, so from that, Bill, you're saying that there are certain, what did you see afterwards? What did you think after we did our site visit and kind of looked around? What are some of the
You
your
know, I
visioning?
um, became aware how it's open, these open spaces where different tree families would congregate or being planted and grown. So that was interesting. And I think they did a good job with the pathway, which leads almost in a circular fashion throughout the space. But it does have really promising uh, representation for uh, sculpture, placement. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, but you had some ideas about, because he saw what the metal or the chain links that you have as part of installations in
Yeah,
the William Hill, I mean, the Nature Center over there.
yes, and talking with Marilyn, one of the commissioner, she wasn't leaning toward like a chain sculptural design. She felt that if we did, the agreement would be with wood chain or wood metal construction for sculpture. So that's kind of what I got from her. But it's just these spaces that are so promising as far as placing art throughout the space. But I think uh, as we focus on the entry point, I think that's going to be our first project.
It's going to be our first project, but she also focused on those seating arrangements for the education classes that she wants to have out there, like classrooms, outdoor classrooms. So that was kind of like a hint, for placement, I think.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
you had that idea, and I don't have the photographs, that whole field that they just planted trees a couple of weeks ago, and those poles that they are using in front of the new trees that they're planted that are for memorial or dedications. You were saying something could happen with those?
Uh, I didn't. I mean, I think that maybe something on a small scale, like a animal, like a tortoise, or possibly, different type of. We wanted to reflect nature as well as different animal species and how they, as a natural habitat, that would be interesting, as a to include within the space. So that's, I mean, basically, and I had mentioned the heron, the three herons near this flooding area. So each, as we walk throughout the space, there are sites that are so unique and different, you know, even that idea of turtles that are living in the creek, maybe we could uh, create, something that's more animal-like, you know, and having that present. So that, I mean, you're understanding what I'm saying about that.
Yeah, I think so. But I was just taking, and taking mental notes of the conversation, and then looking at other forest preserve or nature centers where they have the classrooms, because I know she's really heavy on education and trying to involve and engage the surrounding community renter and or homeowners to be more involved in the nature. She's saying there's a new demographic shift that's happening out there also, and that those folks come more to support programming and bring their families out, to walk that area than the residents that are there.
Yeah. And, I was thinking, okay, if she was thinking about having classroom exercises in the space that maybe what we would have like certain tables for experimentation, or sort of like a working station where students can be, can explore just different parts uh, of the garden.
Well, like for instance, when over at the Nature Center where you are, you also had a vision because you're working with After School Matters, and you have a classroom, that huge table that is set up for more of a classroom.
Yes, I do. And it's just accessible because there's, like we can work on, like, if we wanted to, as far as soil composition and how to understand different layers of soil within the space, the tables would help as far as having a classroom presentation that identifies uh, soil and different, the, excuse me, the district, sort of like uh, the layering of soil and how it looks, the texture. Is it clay? Is it organic? Is it silk? Silk, that's a sort of like a mica or formula as being controlled.
Okay, so I mean, she has a curriculum and the things that she's doing already. She's been there now, I think she said 13 years as commissioner, um, helping to cultivate this whole area, vision it, and I told her that we couldn't find any um, reports that she might have given to the Hazel Crest Commission, she says because she hasn't given them any reports, she's just been doing the work, they haven't really been providing the funding beyond, staff support and what they're doing out there. So, the program has really grown, over, the last decade or so. So she also talked about, remember, they had a jazz concert out there,
Oh,
and
wow.
and I think that that is starting to be like trendy, where folks are hosting, like you guys at the Nature Center hosted jazz. You have about what, 3 jazz concerts out there?
Yeah, we have, yes. And so,
Nice.
yeah, I think I didn't hear her. I mean, you were talking, we sort of separated, I was with Carl and you were with Marilyn. So a lot of this information that you're sharing with me now, I didn't quite hear it. So, but wow.
That
I
was
mean,
the
and it's,
whole point of us. I'm sorry for cross talking, but that was the whole point of us kind of like being out there and learning what kind of programming that they're looking for, what has existed, who's really supporting them, and how to get people more engaged. And like I said, that education piece is crucial because, as you know, you're right next to Hyde Park High School, and getting them involved as space keepers, because all of us that were standing there, or all of us are in our 60s or retired, you know what I mean? And we're still doing this work, but how do we cultivate the younger, folks, and folks that are, invested into community there, to come out and be the place keepers, you know? So
yeah, and
I,
I think, I wanted to say Alpha and is it, there's 2 other people. I know there's Liza and is it Dor? I can't, there's another person.
Yes, Dora is here.
Okay, Dory. You know what I am a mentor to a couple of students, but it took a while to find a good fit, to find a student that was really interested in learning about garden design, landscape design, and wellness. And so I think over time, you'll find students who are strongly interested and taking part of that as well. I have in previous years, I had a student, she was very enthused about landscape design, and she went to study, botany and horticulture at the University of Illinois in Circle. So that was very, I mean, I felt as though, I've been a motivator or being able to provide leadership to students in that direction. So having a learning, seeing the garden or the forest space has a learning capacity is very good.
Right, exactly. So go ahead, Bill. I'm just checking a text message from Carol that won't be able to join us today because she made other plans because it is, election day. And she made other plans. I told her to go ahead on with the plans that she's making and not to worry about it like that. So
Well, I think nature classes being set up at Openland would be, fantastic, because I think there's so much to learn about nature, local plant identification. It's just an ideal space to feel connected and being involved with nature on a large scale.
yeah, I'm looking. I was in Evanston on Sunday, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm looking for it. There it is. Their Bruton, the botanical garden is what they have. There was an entrance to one of their forest preserves that I passed that was on McCormick Road that I was going to talk about, because on their entry they do have a sculpture and an ecology center there as well. So keep going. I'm just
Yeah, and just by labeling plants and trees, then I also include on my labels, what are the health benefits of this particular plant. And so we turn it into a game where there's certain ailments or sicknesses that people may have, and how do what plant would benefit you, toward better health, depending on what that plant has.
mhm.
Mhm.
So I guess the question is, next steps. We're gonna have a site visit with her, with them being invited over to the projects that you're doing. Hopefully, the tree lighting ceremony might be a really good, time for them to come out and you take them on a tour, or, what's next? What did we tell them?
Yeah,
We
I
invited them.
am to visit the Woodlawn Botanical Nature Center, and then maybe we have University of Chicago students are coming November 16th to help with us hanging up lights and decorations. But yeah, I think I think it's the 7th of December. That's on a Saturday. Where we'll have our event. It's Festival of Lights. So yeah, maybe we should contact Carl and Marilyn and find out, is it possible to visit?
Yeah, and I think, like I said, that's the next steps. I finally found the page I was looking for, to kind of show some ideas of what other folks are doing out there. I mean, it's so many examples of the spaces. Hmm. This was in Miles. This is not even the one I want, but look at this, you know, something to engage the youth in as they're coming through. I saw something like this when I was at Governor's Island in New York, you know, where as you're walking those paths, those nature paths, you come up on, you know, things that are more engaging. Um, Even they even had hammocks out there, you know, where people can rest and take a rest. And but the obstacle for to have something like that out there, you have to create installations to discourage um, the unhoused from taking up camps or, you know, sleeping out there. That was one of the things that we had on the other Berlin Wildlife Corridor that we, as the curatorial committee, you know, were making sure that they didn't create these spaces where we would have a problem later.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't see many flowering plants or, you know, throughout the space. I don't, that's rather odd, but I guess because of, you know, it's a forest, but it didn't have, you know, a wide selection of flowering plants.
But didn't she say they were more focused on their tree life and tree education out there?
Maybe that's it,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this one right here would be like this pond area. She was even thinking she could have koi fish out there, you know, turn it into like this whole rain basin, but create this, you know, like this, you know, like this pond area that's a natural space for that rain area that she wanted. And she was like, oh, we could put fish in there. Oh, and I was like, well, do people come out here and fish? And I don't think they fish out there, like on the the creek that was coming through there. I didn't see any fish life out there. I don't think they're encouraging that.
Okay, yeah.
Mm.
Oh, but, you know, but they do. I mean, I guess maybe in the front of Kedzie, the front area of the forest, they have they do a light ceremony, or they have a number of lights, which I thought was interesting for, you know, for the holidays.
Yeah, that's the only area too that they have electricity.
Right, right.
Right. Because there's no electricity in the back. There's where they had that fire pit.
Yeah. And he well he mentioned deer, which maybe there's a, you know, family of deers that are living in the area.
Also, they said coyotes are out there, wolves are out there, but
Yes.
they don't come out where the around humans. You know, when they're out there, they're probably nocturnal, of course. You know, they got those raccoons out there, squirrels, you know, just regular habitat.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was good for them to clear that area so that they can start encouraging, you know, the neighborhood and the residents to come and really walk those paths and be out there. They're also discouraging the teenagers from going back out in there in the middle, creating a clubhouse. You know what I mean? Like they're back out there kind of kicking it, you know, young
Yeah,
people.
I
Um,
hear.
yeah.
So from this visitation, um, you know, I'm thinking our move is to maybe find an artist, or do a call to artists to find out what kind of sculpture would be best to be placed in that entry point area.
But okay, that's a good idea.
So I think it'll be our first step to, you know, for this project.
Do you think?
What did you say?
I'm just saying, you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're concerned about the entry point starting out. And so, yeah, I think to think about that and plan what is necessary to make that happen.
Do they want to really get into the whole call for artists though? Are they leaving that up to you as, and I don't know, for some reason, I just felt like for the first sculpture out there, they really want to have an input on the design of it, not necessarily doing all that work for a call for artists. But we talked about also having community discussions about the type of art because they wanted to connect with the art center that they're building at the Hazel Crest, Metro stop over there. That will be a connector. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, I agree. Because I'm just looking at it as destination points
Mm-hmm.
from the art center to the preserved area. So, and then there's the Metro. So it's almost like going to 3 sites, and so we wanted to, deciding on a destination point for the preserved area would be good.
Well, I'm kind of like, I know you're like in your head, thinking it through, but this was a conversation to kind of like, think about the next steps when we meet with them, when you do the site visit, getting into the winter, you know, um, I noticed that you mentioned when we were out there, the metal, and I kind of brought that up earlier when he was saying he didn't really want to see chains out there. And then I asked him, was that a Underground Railroad site? As one of those historic sites where the Underground Railroad was it more in Ford City area coming up through, that Great Migration? Was that one of the areas? And they didn't know the answer to that. You know what I mean? And so Marilyn was saying that it would probably be offensive for with the whole thing of migration and having to come to a forest preserve that is in a predominantly African American community and having these slave train shackles and chains out there like that. She was kind of swaying away from wanting to have a art piece that was dealing with chains in
Oh,
the
yeah,
environment. You remember
yeah,
she said that?
yes, I remember that. And so what I'm thinking is maybe we should sit down and talk about, okay, is there a history to the site or what? I mean, as a scope, creating sculpture, what I guess does, something that's relatable to the space. Because yeah, and I'm thinking more site specific, but how we could just discover a connection between whether it's historical or everyday realities to that uh to the forest.
Right. And I only saw maybe 7 areas that they pointed out for
Yeah,
sculpture.
yeah, and I'm with you on that. But I think maybe we should explore um like history or even the idea of site visits from residents and just to explore what would be a good art piece that would reflect those ideas.
So maybe if we schedule conversations with and not to assume that they're not artists that are already on committees, because if they're talking about, Bill, we're losing your visual. I only see the top of your head and in the shadows. But not to assume that there's not an art committee out there because they're building that whole art center. Even though this is separate, and then you keep saying open lands is one word, but there's 2 different open lands. And then there's just that commissioner that's over the forest preserve, but there's a whole nother committee that's over the art and culture there, and that huge art center project that they have going.
Yes.
So if you're going to talk about shaping a call for artists to do work, then wouldn't we first go over here and talk with the Hazel Crest, committee that's been assigned to put together their art plan out there and connect, and not come in as consultants doing this project, but it should connect to the bigger piece.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I think when I talked to one of the head commissioner, he was expressing to me that, okay, we have to come up with the proposal. I guess they're looking for suggestions or how this will look. So I don't know if they have a staff of artists or even with the idea with the art center. I don't think they've gotten that far yet to speak with a body of creative people to help us along the way.
Well, not help necessarily, but I'm talking about collaborate. I don't like redoing and looking at someone's cultural vision or talking about their vision without exploring and researching what's already archived and what they're already doing. Because we're just catching up. Because I'm sure this plan has been in motion for a couple of years for them to approve, within their city budget to fund it, to fund the development of it, to take that whole shopping center and, come up with a plan for its use, along with the metro. So I know that they have their plan already in motion. What I'm saying is that it's a cultural destination. I didn't see the train that close to the township where we were. When we turned in off of that main highway, I saw it, but we still had to drive into where the library is, where the police department is, their services area. We had to drive past all that to get over to, the preserve. So there is a disconnect in terms of space and how far it is, but not really, because they have enough land there that it connects. If you're in a car or you're on a bike, if you're a runner or whatever, that's why they were trying to have more events out there to connect those.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, Alpha, but I was thinking when I met the head commissioner, it was Dante Sawyer. He expressed to me that, I don't have a clue, but he said, why don't you, because of your background in gallery work and site-specific sculpture, I would like you to come up with some ideas or make a presentation of what, sculpture placement for that area. And that was my understanding, because they have someone who would on the end of the art center, but I don't think they're going to sit down with us and discuss options, regarding to the placement of sculpture or what type of sculpture. So I think we're going to be strongly involved with Carl and Marilyn on this particular project. I think that's my understanding.
Okay. That's an understanding, but we still have to do our due diligence. Like I just said to Marilyn, that I'm a researcher. I did look up, Hazel Crest. I looked back on some of the agendas, looked back on some of the city reports where I didn't see any of her reports. And that's why she said, well, you won't, because I haven't given any reports like that. I've just been doing the work. I haven't So you won't see any reports like that. So I did let her know that I was going into the guts of it and looking at what, Hazel Crest is doing, looking at their cultural plan, looking, because we have to know that narrative. We have to know that background as consultants going in, to a project, and really listen to what they are saying. And I know that I felt like Carl, they want the same thing, but Carl had a different vision, especially when it came down to material and the type of materials, that would work out there. I know when Carol Henry Alexander is on our call, she's all about what is important in these preserves and the type of work that we, for its longevity too, for the work that is created out there. So you don't want it to dissipate or rot out, within 5 years or 10 years, because you didn't look at the conditions out there. And I know you kept saying metal and instilling metal, which is always a safer way to go with public art instead of wood, but you were saying that you could take, and I just keep going back to where you were saying that you could take those poles that, were they made of wood or fabricated like concrete? What did he say about that pressure? Those
You,
poles.
I'm trying to think of what polls were you talking? I mean, I did.
I keep going back to the poles that are out there that are markers.
Oh,
'Cause I haven't seen those kind before.
there, I sent him, the photo, and I think you looked at it as well. And it was with the sculpture on the front of my street, which it's made out of wood and metal.
Mhm. But you
So
were having a problem at some time with that wood rotting, right?
no, I had a problem with just another. I was creating a table and chair set, and there was this landscape company, which is 2 blocks down, and they sent it was cottonwood, but it didn't. It began to have termites, and major problems occurred from that. So, but I think like getting work from Peter Gray, where I think with his expertise with that creating a sculpture that would, if it's made out of wood, it would prevent the rotting of that material. So it's just a matter of speaking with artists who are willing. I mean, they're working on a project, but it's well preserved when it comes to outdoor presentations or placement.
Especially since they told us that they have these problems with the rain basins out there, the water basins, when it's flooding in those areas that they pointed out.
Yeah. So I think metal would be ideal, for that, that rain water area. So yeah, it's just, you have to, I'm just thinking about the possibilities of,
What about concrete? They showed us several things that were done with concrete out there.
yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, I would like to hear from you. Do we need to talk among ourselves before we do a call to artist contact?
We're not even there yet in terms of doing a call for artists. If anything, it's the invitation, for artists to come together so that we can make recommendations. I mean, there's all kind of recommendations of public art installation that we could go from, but these are just processes to set in place so you have more, well, you're more informed. You have a degree in this, right?
Well,
You have a background of hands-on in this. That's why they have contacted you as the expert on this project. So, we know they're taking our advice. I just like to throw a wider loop or a net, you know, to have conversations with artists that are doing this work. Like that's why I brought Carol in, that are already out there doing this work, you know, and the success of that work. I think like 2 years ago, working in Brandywine, Maryland at that tobacco plantation, Carol was really adamant about not having plastic, you know, like it defeats the purpose of being in the woods and you have plastic, you know, and plastic's destroying the environment, you know. And so when I showed up with my plastic signage and other things that couldn't dissipate back into nature, whereas she built her sculpture out with the you know, those vines that are growing out there like that, and bending them to her will. And so they're still there, you know, and they haven't dissipated down because those things have been out there for centuries, probably. The way they're growing, that bittersweet, you know, vine that's taking over the trees out there. But so we went back and forth because she is that environmentalist and horticulturalist and works within these environments, and I present in these environments, and I just was adamant about what I want to take out there, you know what I mean? And so we went back and forth with those conversations. So I prefer to have a table of other experts giving recommendations, since we have the opportunity to work from scratch. You know, like a clean, you know, we have a clean slate, you know, nothing else is going on, but the projects that they pointed out that they were able to do, like with the fire hydrants and creating those boulders, you know, and then creating that first seating element. And then they also recycled those planters that they got from City Hall out there, you know, for some of the entry and stuff. So
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, I
Mhm.
was, I'm interested in hearing from our members, our Zoom members, to, you know, to see how they feel about certain things that we're discussing.
Liza, are you there? And Dora?
I'm here.
Okay, so Bill asked a question. He said he's interested in hearing your input.
Oh, I just slammed a door as you said that. What is the question that you want me to?
Not a question, and just like he's interested in hearing your, you know, input. Because like, you know, when I was down in Long Beach and I went up the hill to that preserve area with Yaya, and seeing that fracking going on out there. And here you got, you know, the city, you got that fracking up on the hill, and then that's emerged in this whole, you know, where they're trying to bring back the native plants for that area. So you've got these things just opposed to each other. That was an interesting conversation. I was having in my head when I went up there, like, what? You know, and then here you can't take the sunflowers from here because these are, you know, and then there's some plants have been introduced to that area that are not really from that area, that they're trying to weed out, that's taking over the other area. So there's a lot of other little conversations. And then we stopped and started talking with the ranger that was up there, you know what I mean, to get more in depth and be more informed. So Bill just asked the question, if other input for the conversation, because we probably saturated the conversation from our site visit.
Yeah, I mean, are you interested in learning what mattered to me or what excited
Yeah,
me?
what matters to you? What excites you?
I mean, I mean, obviously, I love anything that has an educational component around what's happening with the environment, but that is alluring and beautiful and that can reach people at every level. I love things that are that focus on learning about what is local, and I love things that are participatory. I love things that are that create a seating environment that is also sculptural, where it inspires community gathering of some kind at in that place, if that's appropriate. You know, and then on a personal note, I mean, you know, it took me forever, so this is definitely not something that versions of me in the past would have just been crazy about. But I'm so interested in herbs and medicinal gardens, and then being exposed to, when possible, all the different types of plants globally and what is potentially capable of growing within one area, and being able to see what gardens from other areas look like. I mean, those are the things that have captured my heart, but that I love to see in spaces like that.
Oh, that is very interesting. I love when you brought up, classroom participation, local plant diversity. I mean, and herbs yeah. And if that could be sort of embraced with open land at some level, I think it would be exciting.
Yes, I mean, definitely getting younger people really excited about their own garden, I think is very critical to how we move forward in the world. For I think more people have to go back to having gardens in their home in whatever capacity they can, just for everyone to be more healthy and, considering, and that's a climate message in and of itself. And so incorporating those kinds of things into public spaces where artists can make them interesting and captivating and special, um, I think that's so critical.
Oh, yes, that's wonderful. I was thinking, Alpha, if we created some like goddess or a muse,
Mm, mm.
it'd be
I'm listening.
abstract, yeah, but placement within the space, that would be exciting.
A what?
A
Sort of like a,
goddess or a muse.
yeah, MUSE, goddess-like figure. Uh,
Maybe something that could even become something people take away in the shop as a reminder of the space in their space as well.
yes, I agree.
I'd like to interject. This is Dora.
Hello, Zora.
Hi. I like what Alpha was saying. I think a step back from having an artist right away would be, in the long run, might be better, very beneficial. I'm a history buff, so I would really encourage you to find out about that land, about that area, so you can bring the history out through whatever you put there. Being that you want to bring in young people with ideas and the energy to take this forward. And so to get them motivated, it has to be, I'm thinking, based on something that's dear to their heart. Now, a few of the things that I was thinking that could be incorporated would be like a quiet place within the place whereby they could just sit and meditate under some trees with the sun coming through. I love that idea. And the garden, thank you, Lisa. I agree with that too. Having a garden area whereby people can see what the earth can bring out. I think the focal point is going to be the earth and the history of what that has surrounded that part of the land. That's all I got. Oh, and one other thing too is with those trees, those are, oh my God. Oh my God. Would it be nice to have like a plate on the tree to tell the history of that tree? You know, how old, what the name of the tree is. So when one leaves, they have a sense of knowing what's out there as far as the plants, the trees, that kind of a thing. Just an idea.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I totally agree. Understand. Wow, exciting.
Yeah, this is, I think that you were on when I showed these. This is a sitting area where, like you said, a place for contemplation,
Oh,
gathering. This is
yes.
something that they just installed out there using, just the natural wood that's fallen and, repurposing these boulders and everything. But this is an area. There's some sitting area that's out there that's closer to the road, that's more concrete, that's been there for a while, they were sitting on, but these right here encourages activity, and it's not so deep into the preserve, you know, enlarge in this, but it's not so deep in that they have to go in and up under and hot, you know, like they don't want them hiding back out there, you know what I mean? Because what if something happens, you know, who's going to tell your family, you know, a lot of stuff can happen. So they're encouraging more of these sitting areas that are open, that are classroom style, that they can come and gather and sit around.
I
I
see.
didn't see any signs up that says you can only use this park for so many hours. There's nothing like that out there that's prohibiting folks from coming to explore or to sit. There's no picnic benches or anything. Like some more about people are taking it more as a nature walk, right? And then how to engage them into really being on the education end of attending some of the workshops they're holding out there. And their focus is on the tree life and preserving the trees. And then they're introducing different, you know, English maples and small maples. And I mean, of course, you know, Carl had the name of all of them. I am not a horticulturalist. No, I'm just here as a facilitator, you know, and visionist in doing work in public art, art and environmental installation. So, you know, I have to back up
Well,
when
you
the
know,
experts are
Carl,
at the table.
yeah, excuse me. I wanted to draw from our all three of you that, you know, the history. Maybe this week I'll look into the history. Also, the thinking about like the herbal plant diversity that's there, or you know, on a plant level, what are the benefits of what's been planted over time? And so those are good clues, you know, as far as us moving toward maybe the creation of a sculpture that is symbolic of those expressions.
I agree. And there's such a good group of, you know, I think these two work really well together, you know what I mean? And they both have that vision, you know, of expanding this program and really wanting to see the community engaged in using, you know, and being more proactive about coming across the way, looking at the outreach. You got all of the residents that are in the renter versus homeowner status, but they're still going to school. They're still in the elementary, the junior high, the high schools, the colleges that are out there. You know, if there's programming that they would be interested in attending, you know what I mean? And there's a way that they can cultivate, you know, the use of that, you know, and but so many folks, I guess, just take it for granted when you have all that beauty around you. Like we take for granted Lake Michigan. I'm
Yeah,
just absolutely in love with the Spirit Lake. You know, even on Sunday, I'd rather take the DeSable, you know, Lakeshore Drive to Evanston North or going south, just so I can inhale the beauty of the you know the lake, you know, and that view. Same way as Friday going out to Hazel Crest to look at the preserve. You know, it was a total. I mean, I'm around the woods and around environmental places, but it was just something about inhaling that space, you know, and being there in the quietness of that space, not the recreation of it, but the uh, serenity of that space, you know, and what that means, you know, to the community. But when the community lives right across and it's just another like backyard, you know, like it's just another yard, you know, it's not a playground, it's just another yard. And I'm not going out there, you know, I'm not walking those woods, kind of take.
you know, I'm going to hold deeply to each one of your insights because I think it's fascinating. I mean, so what I'll do maybe the week ahead is just to
Mhm.
explore. Alpha, we can come together as well. But just, you know, what you've mentioned is very powerful, and it can open up creative avenues that are needed for this project.
Yeah, like even right now, I'm on their website looking at, I mean, I should have done this earlier, but dig a little deeper into the history of that area. I only know some of the history of the other area because I was working out there with, some community activists in Forest City that had that whole area as a historical site coming through with the Underground Railroad and stuff like that. And I mean, I know more history, but where does this piece fit in?
Yeah. Well, I must depart. I have an appointment, but gosh, this has been an eye opener for me, and I want to, Alpha, I really thank you for hosting these wonderful talks.
You're welcome. That's what Pop-Up Research Station Cafe is to take the time out to have some informal discussions or looking at some of the projects we're doing and then, archive them because this is one of our case studies that we'll be following, in its development.
And Liza and Dory, you have a good weekend. We'll meet next week,
Have a
possibly.
great week. Hopefully we'll have we'll be nice and calm and relieved by next week because I have not slept.
Yeah, I'm not a Zoom person, and so I'm, there's always that adjustment that's needed in order to.
Oh, I'm saying it's election day and I'm ready for it to be over.
Oh, yeah, that too as well.
Well, I appreciate you letting me be a part of this. I'm in California, so I don't know the area that you're speaking of, but it was very interesting and an eye opener to
Where
listen.
are you in California, Dor?
I'm in Northern California, close to Lake Tahoe,
Oh, beautiful.
just above Sacramento.
Oh, you know what? I'll be in Sacramento on the 12th of November because one of our other case studies is these Sojourner Truth African Heritage Museum there in
Yes.
Sacramento.
Yes.
And I'm their research and development consultant. So
Oh,
I'll be out there for the week, doing some site visits of projects that we got going on and installing there and having some
awesome.
conversations with the Sacramento History Museum, other
Mhm.
partnerships that want to partner with Sojourner Truth Museum. So yeah, I'm familiar.
Awesome.
Liza is down in I shouldn't say Long Beach, but she's down in where are you at in Southern California?
Like Tarzana in the Valley and then in Mission Viejo, I go back and forth.
Yeah. And so I used to live I grew up in Fresno, California, and then Sacramento for 15 years. And then Chicago is my home base now.
Mhm.
So that's interesting when you say Northern California toward Lake Tahoe. I know a lot about California and
Okay. Well, I'm in
yeah.
El Dorado Hills.
Okay, all right. I used to program with Anita Potsy Lowe before she sold her property in Auburn,
Oh, okay.
California.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Small world.
used to do some shows up over there in El Dorado Hills.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Connie McIntyre used to live up in before she passed up in El Dorado Hills, and so I'd go over there. And she did a lot of work with the magnet programs in Sacramento. Sacramento High School, she ran the one of the charter schools there, stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Mike
Small
Gemina,
world.
some of the artists that are up over in El Dorado Hills. Yeah, small world, Dora.
Yes, definitely. Well, I applaud you guys for what you're doing. That's going to be awesome once you get it together. But I wouldn't rush. I would take my time, like you were saying, Alpha, with
Yeah.
finding out, talking to different people and all the different input that is going to, I forget the gentleman's name.
Bill?
Bill? Yeah. Very knowledgeable man comes across. And yeah, all these ideas, we can just throw them at him and let him mull around with it and come up with something spectacular in a few years.
Right. And I think that the entry pieces, if we galvanize community that way and the pieces for the entry and people knew that they had a say in shaping
Yes.
that,
Yes.
you know, it would just, I don't know, I just think they should have a say in that entry piece, you know, that they all contributed some kind of
And the
way
young
or,
people, because they
yeah.
are tomorrow's leaders.
Yeah, well, I totally agree, Alpha, and I think it's wonderful. And I must depart, but each one of you, please have a blessed and wonderful week.
Thank you. You likewise, Bill.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Bill.
Bye.
Yeah,
Well,
so,
I'm gonna get going.
well, thank you for joining us, and you're always welcome back, Dora.
Thank you.
All right. And I'm going to encourage you to visit Sojourner Truth African Heritage Museum
I've
there
been
in
there.
Sacramento.
I've been there. Mhm.
Yeah, we're getting ready to have a dedication of 22 metal chairs that depict the Harlem Renaissance. They're people chairs, and they're being installed as I talk.
When is
But
the big unveiling event?
we're going to talk about that on the 14th. It will be in December because the project ends December 30th. So we got to have that,
Okay.
you know, like we're going to have several dedications that are around the 13th, the 12th with Regional Transit Stop wants to have their own during the farmers market. And then the probably that Saturday, the 14th for Florin Partnership, they're having a big Winter Wonderland thing going on. So they want to have a dedication of the mural that's at their Food Max site. And then down at Tamashanner and Florin, closer to, you know, Kwanzaa that weekend, they want to have a dedication in December. So it'll be that whole weekend of the after the 12th. I think it's what we're going to narrow it down to, but you know, but they're going in, and it's been a 2-year process of working with this Thorn Road Community Beautification Project. So yeah,
Great.
yeah, yeah. And I have two, I project manage assist that, but I have 2 sculptures that were installed at the Regional Transit, and then one down at on Tamashanner and Florence at the Business Square.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Maybe I'll get a chance to see you when you're visiting that week of
yeah, if you could
November.
put your email in the chat, and that way we can let you know what's going on and give you some
Okay.
updates of that. But I will be in Sacramento from the 12th through the 16th next week.
All right.
All
Great.
right.
I'll look forward to that. Thank you so much.
All right. You're welcome.
And I'm going to say toodaloo.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Lisa.